Hello, this is Adam with Dream-Made Productions. This video is made possible by the very kind donations of viewers like you. Thank you. If you are in a position to help this channel improve quality and grow, please visit my Patreon page at www.patreon.com/DreamMadeProductions, linked below.
It is the 31st century, and mankind is once again at war. The battlefields of the future are dominated by huge robotic war machines known as battlemechs.
Hello, and welcome back to The Arsenal, a show where we look at the weapons, equipment, and technology of the BattleTech universe. Today, we look at a weapon that was, in the grand scheme of things, recently added to the Battlemech arsenal, yet in ways is as old as time itself. From the first appearance of the Battlemech on the field of war, the capability and sophistication of its weapons have only increased. With the simple autocannon 5 particle cannon and large laser of Kincaid's prototype Mackie, to the clan-based super weapons of the current era. As amazing as these systems are, the countless conflicts throughout human history has tried to teach one lesson over and over. No matter how reliable the weapon system, no matter how advanced, no matter how powerful, sooner or later, all technology fails. And in combat, that can easily lead to instant death. Wise soldiers, both in the real world and the universe of BattleTech, never forget the basics, and this weapon is about as basic as they come. Today, we look at a weapon in its own way, more terrifying than any other: the Hatchet. After the introduction of the Mackie in 2439, a new arms race began. Every power, big and small, began to dream of armies of the newly anointed king of the battlefield. It did not take long for designers to begin improving on the very flawed design of the Mackie. One of the first additions was adding articulated hands to future mech designs. These hands served many purposes, from increasing the mech's utility out of combat to allowing the mech to engage in melee combat. Early attempts were a balancing act. Allowing a mech fine dexterity required small and precision parts easily destroyed when bashed at high speed into thick armor. On the other side, heavy plates and reinforced actuators built up to survive such punishment were cumbersome and could only perform the simplest of tasks. To a degree, this continues today, but modern Battlemech battle fists allow for both sustainability and a good degree of flexibility. As Battlemech melee combat capability increased, the need for mech's fisticuffs decreased as weapon ranges and damage pushed engagements out further and further. Still, there are times when all else fails, and at some point, some mech warrior reached down, using his mech's hands to pick up something. A massive tree, steel girders from rubble of a collapsed building, perhaps the fallen limb of an enemy battlemech. Whatever the circumstances, the mech warrior, now lost to time, began to brandish his new club. For many centuries, these improvised weapons served their purpose. During the days of the Star League, such close-in weapons were needed so rarely that little thought was put into further development. After the departure of the SLDF survivors on their exodus, things began to change. As nuclear weapons fell like rain during the First Secession War, the wonder weapons of the past began to vanish. Suddenly, mech combat began to be compressed as ranges were limited and computing power to hit a moving target at extreme range faded. Well-maintained weapon systems gave way to patched-together monstrosities using bits and pieces salvaged from smoking husks, now ancient and in many cases never really designed to work together. Unsurprisingly, malfunctions increased. By the early 31st century, things had changed. Field modifications had existed for centuries, but the Lyrans would be the first to design and manufacture a purpose-built melee weapon for their new Hatchet Man Battlemech. Formally introduced in 3022, the Battlemech Hatchet is truly a terrifying weapon to behold. A giant piece of slab armor with a reinforced and sharpened blade. It would not take long for the hatchet to disseminate out from the Lyran's purpose-built Hatchet Man to other battlemechs. The weapon is crafted for the mech that will carry it, giving the wielder far more control over his attacks than battle fists or improvised or field-made weapons. Unlike most other weapons, a battlemech's hatchet or axe's weight and size depends on the mech wielding it, at 1 ton for every 15 tons of the wielding mech. Unlike improvised weapons, the hatchet is connected directly to the mech like any other piece of equipment. This means that the hatchet's more vulnerable sections are protected by the mech's armor. This means that the weapon takes up space. In this case, the hatchet takes up 1 critical for each ton of the hatchet. When struck with a hatchet, its damage depends on its size, roughly 1 point of damage for every 5 tons of the wielding mech. All this for virtually no heat generation. Further, the weapon is virtually foolproof. It cannot overheat, it cannot run out of ammunition, spare parts are virtually unneeded. Indeed, maintenance is virtually unnecessary. Even the most basic of trained technicians should be more than enough to pound away any dents and grind the blade back to a sharpened edge. The hatchet would grow in popularity as technology was rediscovered and reinvented. The XL engines and mask systems allowed mechs to close into melee faster. Triple-strength Malamar could greatly increase the damage potential of the hatchet. The Lyrans would again invest heavily in their ideas, building the Hatchet Man's big brother in 3048, the Axe Man, just in time for the clans to meet the savagery of the Inner Sphere. Unlike many weapons, the hatchet has no clan equivalent. The SLDF survivors had no need to develop such a weapon. They still had access to their advanced weapon systems, and while battlemechs became increasingly rare in the Inner Sphere, the SLDF and the clans after them built massive brine caches to store the surplus of gear. As time passed, the SLDF's rare usage of physical attacks morphed into a kind of honor taboo. By the time the clan invasion force smashed into the Inner Sphere, these physical weapons were seen by the clans as uncivilized barbarians using their crude savage weapons. Hatchets would continue on, with further melee weapons being introduced. The Draconis Combine introduced the mech-scale samurai sword, because, well, of course they did. Other weapons derived from the hatchet appeared over the years, all of which we will discuss in good time. As for my thoughts on the hatchet, I like the hatchet, and sometimes build lances around melee. My success has been mixed, but I can say I do love the idea of the hatchet. When faced with any survival situation, combat or otherwise, having a sharpened piece of metal at your side is always useful. Let me know your thoughts on the BattleTech hatchet. Also, remember to leave suggestions for weapons and equipment you would like to see covered. And as always, I hope you enjoy the battle reps that are to come. Hello, this is Adam with Dream Made Productions. Thank you for watching my content. It really means a lot that you have given me the chance to entertain you. If you would like to support the channel, please visit my Patreon at patreon.com/DreamMadeProductions, linked below. Also below is a link for PayPal, or links if you would like to send crypto, if that's more your thing. Please know any amount that you give will be cherished and used to upgrade equipment and improve the channel. You can also help the channel by subscribing, turning on notifications, liking, commenting, and sharing my channel with anyone you think might be interested. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you enjoy the battle reps that are to come.